prosperous day, everyone. Once again, this is Nhoie's Case. CASE is an acronym meaning clarifying and simplifying English. This is another learning adventure under the Academia Gonzaga, and I am Mentor Nhoie saying it is easier to make easy things hard and harder to make hard things easy. That is why today we will endeavor to make a hard term appear easy. Our term of the day is amalgamation. Again, that is amalgamation. To enhance our thoughts, let us first uncover a gem found in 2 Peter 3:17, and it says, "Therefore, dear friends, since you have been forewarned, be on your guard so that you may not be carried away by the error of the lawless and fall from your secured position." This is a great biblical reminder that time will come that man will try to impersonate God, will do things only God should have done, and will mask God's greatness. But their actuations and motives are all selfish, personal, and evil. Therefore, there should be a need to study and know them, lest we can be part of them if we will put our guards down. So, what is amalgamation? Amalgamation is quite a complex terminology. But there is a Middle French and medieval Latin word amalgama, and this word was used in the 15th century with the instance referring to a mixture of mercury and another metal. This usage of the original word later on carries the idea perception that amalgamation means mixing two things to create an improved one. Merriam-Webster defined amalgamation as the action or process of uniting or merging two or more things which will end up in blending resultants rather than one eliminating the other or one mixing itself into the other. So there is a conceptual condition in the mixture presented that the output will cater to a blended product and not a dominance of one over the other. Let us first logically set up the context of which we will use this word amalgamation in order to give accurate expansion and explanation. Amalgamation in relation to bioengineering is a procedure or experimentation wherein there is a quest to go beyond what is normal, otherwise known as extra normality. So let us conceptualize what is extra normality. A present dog in our environment is what we call the state of a normal dog. However, in a quest to create a dog with characteristics beyond the limitation of being a dog starts the concept of extra normality. Here you may wish the dog to have wings, for the dog to fly, or gills for the dog to swim and stay longer without breathing issues underwater. Thus, the normality of the dog was retained, and the concept of adding more is now what is implemented as blending to the dog's system. This is where amalgamation factors. The concept here seemed to be very elementary and simple, but it does not really look like as simple as we have portrayed it to be. Why? Because we are dealing with DNA or the deoxyribonucleic acids. These are signatures of God in our body, and these are genetic materials that defines individuality and specificity of one organism or creature. Messing up with the DNA means destroying, damaging, dilapidating, disintegrating, and dishonoring the perfect creation of the great God in heaven. Today, this practice of amalgamation has rendered temporary and non-absolute successes, as this theoretical concept yielded the resultants we call now as GMOs or the genetically modified organisms, and more of them plant-based, or most of them in plants. You can see altered corn displacing the nicely organized corn bits presentation with that of a disorganized but very big bits presentation of each corn or each corn growth in relation to the whole corn hab. Yes, there is increase of size, increase of weight, but there has been no disclosure of the impact of the amalgamation to the modification that was introduced to this food product. The non-disclosure will surely eliminate the idea of having retrograde and active effect on the consummation of these amalgamated or modified products. The fact that DNA was involved in the re-engineering process of the organism, it is tantamount to common sense that there will surely be adaptive and genetic effect to that generational capacity of the product, not only in its state of living, but in the products consummated even by the unconnected consumers. Amalgamation will never stop there. There are attempts to re-engineer animals and let them have additional characteristics which they should not have in a common setup. Many of these animals were subjected to research without considering that they are also live creatures that deserve the decency of life. So common experimentation starts with 500 animal inclusion, and at the end of every experiment, only one or two survive and remain living, yet they will do so not as normal or functional beings, but even in their survival form, they will execute less capability of sustaining life. In short, it is a scientific play of life. To enhance our explanation and exposition of the word amalgamation in the context of bioengineering, let us uncover three significant immoral results in the process. These are, number one, alteration of the normal creation of God by human ambitiousness. Number two, insensible loss of life in the process of doing the experimentation. And number three, the endpoint of using this research to human beings like you and me. First, God created a perfect world, and man wanted this to vanish by creating human controls that will eventually leave the ecosystem and the environment in balance. If we notice today, animals have a very logical distribution and they have logical limitations. That is why we have a very consummated and balanced environment. In short, a functional and a harmonious ecosystem. Once science will create a super animal or a super being out of the curiosity that man has and evil objectives of some, then these amalgamated beings will someday create an imbalance that will be detrimental to all God's creation or to all of God's creation. Thus, man should not in any way disrupt, damage, destroy, disintegrate, and diminish God's creation. Second, the route to completion of a certain discovery will not make it right while lives are being lost along the way. While for some these are lives that can be due to collateral damage and their deaths will be justified for that or for future research, to some people who knew God, this has no difference with murder, genocide, homicide, and even annihilation of the human species. This is barbaric, and this has no place in a modern civilization, and much more in a system that believes that God is the supreme being. Third and most dangerous, man's little advancement will become a threat to other humans. How? Remember when GMOs yielded little successes in plants, biogeniuses left the study and aimed higher on animals. Now that they have a very little success rate in animals, well, they have one even just in 500 experimented animals that survive. What is the assurance of humanity that this experimentation called amalgamation will not be carried to the human level of experimentation? Are we ready to lose hundreds and thousands of lives just to cater to an unsure destiny of creating blended and superhumans? Today, science is already knocking on your doors. There are procedures that are publicly declared to be medical in purpose, but it is unsure if they are actually or there is actually no amalgamation objectives in some or all of them. Science may create diseases that actually do not exist for it to have a safe passage to create an instance of curing it, using it as a facade for the greater aim, which is to implement bioengineering or amalgamation to the human system, specifically the sacred and all-important genes that we are protecting, which is our DNA. This is the very reason why amalgamation will definitely be imposed to man using the logic of fallacies, meaning they will make man understand that there are greater opportunities ahead without showing to them that the enormity of the destructive effects can be enough to erase humanity itself. As a Christian, I always believe that God created a perfect creation and no human being can surmount the intellect of the great God in heaven, thus making it illogical for man to play God and to dismantle what God has created. If there is one thing that man can do to really improve the lives of living beings in this world, it is more of restoration and never at any point amalgamation or bioengineering. We should use science to protect God's creation, not to bring harm and destruction to it. To summarize, amalgamation in bioengineering is tantamount to human experimentation that will surely sacrifice a lot of lives along the very long way of its process. A process that cannot even assure success at its endpoint. If this will not be given attention in the world of science, we may be looking at the greatest destruction and demolition of the human race. So the greatest favor we can do to humanity now is, let us always scrutinize science, and in a way, let us filter what science will do to our body, because we are already created by an unquestionable great God, and science logically cannot make us better. Today, we have clarified and simplified the term amalgamation in relation to human bioengineering. To end, let me share a quotation authored by Vandana Shiva, one of my favorite inspirational author who is also an Indian scholar and environmental genius. And she said, "Genetic engineering has never been about saving the world. It's about controlling the world." Yes, we haven't even explored yet the greatness of God's creation totally. But people now in the scientific horizons wanted to impose power, not really to restore humanity, but to create fear so that humanity will bow down and eventually succumb to a dominion of a triggered authority. This is still Mentor Nhoie Gonzaga, and you are learning with us in Nhoie's case, wherein case stands for clarifying and simplifying English. This is still a program under Academia Gonzaga Systems, and we believe that it is easier to make easy things hard and harder to make hard things easy. At this moment, we have simplified and clarified a complicated term. Thus, it's time to rest our case. Have a greatly motivated day to everyone.